Hey, this is Nathaniel back with coding-bootcamps.com. In this video, we're going to talk about using find um, with conditions placed on the query to filter back the data that we want. Um, so if you recall, we've up until this point always been providing one query parameter. If we just go back all the way back up to when we started section 4 with queries, we were using find and we were always saying, I have this thing that I'm looking for, like I'm looking for department IT. But we want to also be able to specify more complex queries that are looking for things with different conditions. So that's what this section's all about. So I'm going to scroll back down through our script that we've been writing, and we're going to start here with and. And we're going to go through and, we're going to go through or, and we're going to go through in, which is very similar to or. And we're going to go through one at a time and run each of them. We're going to go through and, for instance, and then we're going to run the script and look for our results for our and query, and then we're going to do similarly for the other ones because I want to make sure that we're focusing on each one specifically before moving to the next one this time, because it's a little bit more in depth than what we did in the last video with the different operators. But it still isn't bad. Just we'll start with and it's actually the easiest one because it's really, really similar to what we've been doing. So we have this find command that we're running, and we're specifying exactly what we did before, department IT. But now we're just adding another field that we're looking for. This time we're looking for last name Bradley. So this is an and. If you are familiar with programming, then this should seem very straightforward to you. It's just an and operation between these two. And if you don't really have much of a background, that's okay. It's a really straightforward concept. All we're saying is that we want both of these conditions to match. We're going to look for someone who has department IT and a last name of Bradley. If you don't work for IT, you're not going to be in this result. If you don't have a last name of Bradley, you're not going to be in this result. And we're going to print out the results. So let's save this and go to our terminal again and run this. We're going to get a lot of output here, but remember, we're just doing one by one. We're looking for the and results. So what do we have here? We have one result that got printed out. And who is it? It's Jane Bradley, IT department. Why? Because if you remember, we have another employee, John Smith, who belongs to the IT department, but his last name is not Bradley. So only Jane gets returned. Now, switching back, we're going to look at or. So, again, we're going to print a note to ourselves to let us know where we are. And we're going to run this find again. And this time it's going to look a little more complicated. So, all we're saying now is we're using another operator that has this $sign. If you remember, we used this when we were updating data. We did $set. It's just a little syntax that can be a little confusing, but don't worry too much about it. You're going to say or colon, and then you're just going to have a list of different parameters that you're trying to match on. Okay, so the first one is email johnsmith@example.com, and the second one is last name Bradley. So what are we expecting to happen here? Well, only one of these conditions needs to match on a record for you to get the result back. So if we look at the John Smith record, we're going to match on email. All right? John Smith doesn't have a last name Bradley, but we don't care. He has a last name John, or he has an email of johnsmith@example.com. And similarly for Jane Bradley, we're not going to match on email, but we are going to match on last name. And then we're going to print out the results. So let's give that a shot. So if we look here, we have two results. So we did indeed match on both records. For John, we matched on email, and for Jane, we matched on last name. And now our final example, we're going to use in. So in is really similar to or, except it makes it easier to specify if you're looking for one of many different things. That's why it uses the keyword in. It's like one thing in many that I'm looking for. So in this case, we're trying to find a last name, but instead of saying like last name, Adams, last name Bradley, and then another entry, last name, X, last name Y, last name Z. If you're looking for a bunch of different possible last names, we can just give one list. So we're only saying last name one time, and then we're using, we have colon, and we have the in operator, and then we have a list of different last names we're looking for. So anyone with the Smith last name or the Adams last name will be returned. And I could just keep adding them on here in the list, like, I don't know, Jones, right? And so if we could do the same thing with or, but it would get like really big, really fast. We'd always have to add a new block for each one. This one's just like we have a list of things we're looking for. So let's give this a run. Okay, and now we see that we were searching for Smith and Adams and Jones, and we get back one record because we only have one person who matched a last name in that list, and it was Smith. So I encourage you to think about this. Don't get too bogged down or overwhelmed in the details of in. The most important things to know are and or. If you get confused with how in is really working and how it relates to or, just maybe just take a pause on that one and don't worry too much about it. But if it's making sense to you, then just kind of try to confirm in your mind that you are doing an or here. It's just making it a simpler syntax to you. It's like a convenience method to use. So with that said, we are going to end this video on the logical operators and or and in that we're using to filter data, and I will see you in the next video.